Can you save me from my daddy? The tiny voice cut through the roar of motorcycle engines like a blade through silence. At 2 a.m. in the morning, the Blackthorn Syndicate's garage was alive with noise. The grinding of wrenches, the bass of rock music, the heavy laughter of men who had lived their lives on the edge. But the second those words dropped into the room, everything froze. 12 men, hardened outlaws with leather cuts and scarred faces, turned to see the last thing they ever expected. A little 6-year-old black girl stood at the mouth of their garage, barefoot, pajamas torn, her braids uneven, as though someone had yanked them in anger. She clutched a pink backpack almost as big as she was, the straps digging into her small shoulders. Her eyes, wide and shimmering, flicked from one intimidating biker to the next. The silence that followed was heavier than steel. Blaze, the president of the syndicate, was the first to move. A man with a jagged scar running down his cheek and hands calloused from decades of violence. He crouched low, trying to make himself smaller in front of the trembling child. His voice, rough from years of smoke and whiskey, softened. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl's lips quivered, but her voice carried steady in the stillness. "Sofia. Sofia Delgado." The room shifted. Blaze glanced at his brothers. Grim, the hulking enforcer with a stare like stone. Tank, built like a wall of muscle. Viper, sharp-eyed and restless. Diesel, Ghost, Hawk, all frozen, watching. Sofia clutched the straps of her backpack tighter. Her next words came out like a confession and a plea. "My mommy's in heaven now. Daddy said she went to sleep with the angels." Her eyes filled with tears. "But I think he made her go there. I saw the red stuff on her head before she stopped waking up." A ripple went through the garage. Every man in that room had seen enough death to know exactly what red stuff meant. Hardened criminals, men who had survived prison, gunfights, and wars on the street, suddenly found themselves staring at something that shook them more than bullets ever could. A child's blunt description of her mother's murder. Blaze lowered his head, his scarred brow furrowing. "How did you find us, Sofia?" She shifted her little feet, her voice barely a whisper. "I followed the broken white line on the road. All night. Mommy once told me, if something really bad ever happened, I should find the scary-looking men who fight monsters." Her words hit the room like thunder. Sofia slid the pink backpack off her shoulders. It landed on the concrete floor with a dull thud. Slowly, carefully, she unzipped it. At first, the contents seemed harmless. A pack of crackers. A juice box, warm from the night air. Her mother's cracked phone. Then her tiny hands trembled as she pulled out something that froze every biker where he stood. A kitchen knife. The blade streaked with dried blood. "My daddy was hurting mommy with this," Sofia said, her voice flat, like a child repeating instructions she had rehearsed. "She told me if anything bad happened, I should take evidence." She raised her eyes, innocent and piercing. "Is this evidence?" Blaze didn't answer. None of them could. Sofia reached back into her bag. She pulled out a small digital camera, worn and scratched. Her small fingers worked the buttons until the screen flickered to life. She held it up so they could see. The first photo showed a woman with a swollen black eye. The second, bruises snaking down her arms. The third, so violent, so cruel, that Tank turned away, clenching his fists. There were 47 photos in total. Proof, lined up frame by frame, of months of abuse. Finally, from the bottom of the backpack, Sofia lifted out a flash drive. A cheap, plastic Hello Kitty keychain dangled from it. "Mommy hid this. She said it was important. That if something ever happened to her, I should give it to the police." The room went still again, but this silence felt different. Every man there understood. This wasn't just about an abusive father. That drive could contain something dangerous enough to bring death to anyone who held it. Sofia hugged the backpack to her chest and whispered, "Please don't let him take me back. He scares me. He made mommy go to heaven. I don't want to go with him." The Blackthorn Syndicate, men feared on every street, men who had shed blood and carried sins too heavy to name, looked at one another. And in that moment, 12 hardened criminals found themselves standing in the presence of something they had almost forgotten how to protect: innocence. If you're hooked already, Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon, because what Sofia reveals next will shock you even more. The garage fell quiet. Sofia stood by the workbench with her backpack open, the knife wrapped in a rag, the camera asleep on metal. The flash drive sat under a bulb, a cheap plastic thing with a cartoon charm that felt heavier than every engine in the room. Blaze pulled a crate over and sat eye level with her. "Your mom taught you the camera," he said. "When?" "When Daddy started getting mad more," Sofia said. "At first it was plates and doors. Then it was hands. Mommy said we had to keep the truth, because sometimes police listen better to pictures than to tears. She left notes to remind me where to hide the camera. Under the bread box. Inside the rice jar. Behind the cereal." Grim leaned on a post, arms crossed. "And the knife?" he asked. "Why take it?" "Because Mommy said evidence is the thing that makes lies stop." Sofia nudged the wrapped blade with one toe. She whispered in the bathroom with the water on, so Daddy could not hear. She said if the worst happened, I should take what proves it, then run to the people who fight monsters. Tank looked away. "How long has this been happening?" "I do not know time good," Sofia said. "There were birthdays with no cake. A winter with no coat. Nights when the TV was loud so the neighbors would not hear." Viper moved closer. "The drive," he said. "Who put it in your bag?" "Mommy did." Sofia tapped the zipper. She slid it under the lining and sewed it shut. She said it had numbers and names from Daddy's work. She said if anything happened, I should give it to safe people who are stronger than bad men. Blaze caught Grim's eye. "This is bigger than a domestic." Ghost said nothing. Hawk checked the camera card, steady the way he had been overseas when a wrong wire meant no one went home. "Your mom trusted you," Diesel said. "That is strong work, little one." "She said brave is doing true things even when your stomach hurts," Sofia said. Blaze drew the flash drive toward him and set it on a clean cloth. "Hawk," he said, "no internet, no cloud. Isolate a laptop. Read it offline." Hawk disappeared into the office. The others stayed with Sofia, giving the backpack the kind of space men give a shrine. Grim crouched so his shadow would not fall over her. "Did your mom ever go to the police?" Sofia shook her head. "Daddy smiles nice. He gives money at church. He tells stories that make him sound gentle. Mommy said the police might think we were making trouble. She said truth needs pictures. Truth needs witnesses too," Grim said. The office light flicked on. Hawk sat with an old laptop, the wireless card taped over. He opened the folder tree and called out, "Ledger files. Transfers. Names. Offshore accounts. Dates. 3 years deep. It is not just the father. It is a web." A quiet curse moved around the room. "Cartel bookkeeping on a child's keychain," Viper said. "That is a death warrant." Tank paced. "So we hand it to the cops. Call it in and step back." Grim looked at Sofia and spoke. "What happens when the father makes bail? When the men who own these numbers come to collect the missing piece?" Blaze spoke like he was setting a bone. "We do both," he said. "We protect the girl, and we deliver the truth. Clean." Sofia watched them measure fear and decide anyway. She lifted the camera and held it like a soft animal. "If the police do not listen," she said, "you can take more pictures. I can show you how." Hawk returned with a printed page, columns of numbers and names. He laid it by the flash drive. One account routes through a foundation with the city sheriff's name on it. Diesel swore. That is why her mom sewed it in. She did not know who to trust. Outside, the world was dark. Inside, 12 men stood on the seam between what they had been and what they were about to become. Blaze looked at Sofia. "We are going to take care of you," he said. "Your mom set you up to survive. Now we set you up to live." Sofia offered crackers around. Grim took one. The others followed. "Trouble will come," Ghost said. "They will not let this go quiet. They will come fast," Hawk added. "Before daylight." "Then daylight is our friend," Viper said. "Neighbors see things in daylight." Blaze drew a map on the concrete with chalk. Arrows from doors. Lines for sight. Names on posts. No hero moves, he said. We contain. We record. We hold until blue lights take possession. No one touches that drive without gloves and 2 witnesses. Grim looked back at Sofia. You stay with me. Sofia held his stare. Are you a monster? She asked. Grim blinked. I have been, he said. Tonight I am not. She slid her hand into his. It fit there like a key in a long locked door. The clock clicked to 2:30. Hawk sealed the laptop, the knife, and the camera card in plastic. Diesel rolled the garage door down until only a slit of night remained. Tank checked the lot. Viper killed the exterior lights and turned on motion sensors. Ghost moved to the back. The place coiled and waited. I can be quiet, Sofia said. I know how to hide under beds and in closets. You will not hide here, Blaze said. You will stand in the open with your family. A phone buzzed on the bench, an unknown number, then another. Viper flipped it to silent. Blaze, Hawk said, quieter now. There is a last folder. Blaze stepped into the office. On the screen were videos. Not just bruises. Meetings. Handshakes. A man in a suit smiling with her father. The same man cutting a ribbon at a playground. The same man whispering beside a patrol car. Faces from the evening news. Blaze returned with a stillness. This is not just a home, he said. This is a city. What do we do? Diesel asked. We do what her mother asked, Blaze said. We keep the truth. We carry it. We deliver it. Outside, a single engine turned far away, then another. The night began to organize. They heard it as a vibration through concrete, then as sound. Grim squeezed Sofia's hand. When bad men come, he said, what do brave people do? Sofia lifted her chin. We stand with safe people, she said. We keep the truth. And we breathe, Blaze added. Slow and steady. The syndicate took their positions. Hawk set the laptop by the safe and locked both. The bulb over the flash drive burned white. If I get scared, Sofia said, can I talk to my mommy out loud so she can hear me from heaven? You can, Blaze said. And we will hear you too. She moved beside Grim. The night breathed out. Trouble was coming. They were ready to meet it. The garage smelled of motor oil and sweat, the kind of scent that clung to steel walls and men who lived in their own shadows. Sofia sat on a crate beside Grim, her small backpack on her lap, fingers clutched tight around the straps. The men of the Blackthorn Syndicate were still circling, whispering low, weighing their next steps. Hawk's printouts lay spread across the table, evidence of money trails, drug shipments, names high enough to choke the city. Then it came. A low vibration through the concrete floor. At first, it could have been a lone truck grinding down the highway. But seconds later, Blaze lifted his head. Tank froze mid-step. Grim's eyes narrowed. Engines. More than one. The men drifted into silence, every instinct sharpened by years of surviving ambushes and raids. Outside, the desert night came alive with light. Headlamps sweeping across the lot, beams slicing into the garage through gaps in the door. Positions, Blaze said quietly. Diesel rolled the bay door down to a sliver. 3 cars skidded into the gravel outside, dust rising like smoke. The sound of doors slamming, boots crunching, voices low, then sharper. Blaze motioned Grim to cover Sofia. Ghost faded into the shadows at the back. Hawk set his hand over the laptop like it was a loaded weapon. The lead car's door opened. A man stumbled out, heavy with alcohol and rage. His shirt half unbuttoned, his belt crooked, his hand gripping a pistol. His face twisted, eyes bloodshot, spittle flying with every breath. Mr. Delgado. Behind him, 3 other men stepped into the glow of the headlights. Santos, Morales, and Cortez. They moved differently, cold and professional. No wasted steps. No stumbles. Their jackets too heavy for the heat, the bulge of weapons beneath. Cartel muscle. Delgado swayed, shouting into the night. Sofia, get out here right now. You took something that doesn't belong to you. His voice echoed across the lot, slamming into the garage walls. Inside, Blaze's jaw tightened. He walked forward, his boots steady, his body a wall of scars and steel. Behind him, his brothers fanned out, forming a line. 12 against 4, but with a child at the center. The bay door groaned as Blaze pushed it up just enough to step into the night. His voice was calm, but it carried like thunder. Put the gun down, Delgado. Don't you tell me what to do. Delgado barked, waving the pistol wildly. That girl has something that will bury us all. Hand her over, or you're all dead men. Sofia trembled, pressing herself into Grim's side. But then, slowly, she stood. Her legs shook, but her chin lifted. She stepped out from behind the bikers until she stood in the doorway, bathed in the white glare of the headlights. Her father's eyes locked on her. Rage and something darker twisted across his face. You little brat. You don't know what you've done. Her voice was small, but it carried. You hurt Mommy. You made her go to heaven. And now everyone will know. The words seemed to slice Delgado open. He snarled, raising the gun. I should have finished it that night. I should have. He never got to finish. The Blackthorn Syndicate surged forward as one. The fight exploded like a storm. Chains whipped through the air, cracking against bones. Knives flashed in the headlights. Fists slammed into ribs with the weight of years of violence behind them. Guns barked, but the bikers moved like men who had dodged bullets before. Tank tackled Morales to the gravel, pinning his wrist until the gun fell. Diesel swung a crowbar into Cortez's knee, dropping him with a scream. Grim's fists were stone against Santos's jaw, breaking teeth and silence. Blaze went for Delgado. The two men collided in the dirt, Delgado's pistol firing into the sky. Blaze's scarred hands closed around his wrist, slamming it into the ground until the gun skittered away. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. 90 seconds of chaos that felt like an hour. Dust swirled. Blood sprayed. Shouts cracked through the night and then faded. When it was over, Delgado and his men lay sprawled on the gravel, wrists zip-tied with plastic cuffs, faces bloodied, groaning against the weight of defeat. The bikers stood heaving, chests rising and falling in rhythm, blood streaked across leather, fists raw. And then, in the heavy silence, Sofia walked forward. She stepped carefully, her small bare feet moving between broken glass and dirt. One of the pistols lay half buried near the headlights, dropped in the scramble. She bent, picked it up with both hands, and held it out in front of her the way her mother had taught her to carry dangerous things. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through every heart there. This goes to the police too. More evidence. Blaze looked at her, this little girl who had walked into their lives with a backpack full of truth and courage. His voice cracked for the first time in years. Yeah, little one, he said softly. This too. The engines outside cooled, ticking. The desert went still again. But inside every man's chest, the storm had only begun. The echo of violence still hung in the garage when the red and blue lights cut through the dark. Engines cooled. Knuckles throbbed. Delgado and his men were sprawled on the ground, zip-tied, bloodied, and moaning. Blaze stood with his fists clenched, chest rising and falling like a furnace. Behind him, Sofia gripped that pink backpack like a shield. The police swarmed in. An officer bent to lift the flash drive carefully into an evidence bag. The stained knife and digital camera followed. For a moment, it looked like order might take over. But order doesn't guarantee safety. Not when cartels are involved. The cops hauled Delgado upright. His shirt was torn, his lip bleeding, but his eyes still burned with a father's warped claim. He shouted past the officers, voice hoarse. She's mine. You hear me? Mine. Sofia didn't flinch. She lifted her chin and said it so clear the officers froze. You killed Mama. Silence. Then a cop muttered into his radio, asking for backup. Blaze placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. She leaned into him without hesitation. In that moment, lines blurred, outlaw and child, criminal and protector. By dawn, Delgado and his men were booked. The evidence was logged, statements taken. On paper, it looked airtight. But Blaze knew paper burned fast. Cartel money could reach judges, cops, even prison walls. That left the girl. Detective Ruiz explained in clipped tones. She can't stay with you. There's an aunt in California. Social services will process the transfer. Sofia's little hand tightened around Blaze's cut-off vest. Her head shook violently. No. Please. Don't send me away. He'll find me. They'll all find me. Caroline Grant, the assigned social worker, knelt in front of her. She was kind-eyed, her tone soft, but her words felt like bars closing in. Sofia, you'll be safer with family. But family meant blood ties, and blood ties had already betrayed her. Blaze crouched low, meeting her eyes. You trust me, kid? Sofia nodded. Then you stay here. For now. Caroline started to protest. Blaze's voice cut her short. You take her, she runs. You leave her, she lives. Your choice. It wasn't supposed to last. A night, maybe two. But nights became weeks, and the clubhouse changed in ways none of them saw coming. At first, it was awkward. These men, Blaze, Grim, Tank, Demon, were made for chaos, not caretaking. But Sofia carved herself into their lives with small, stubborn demands. Bedtime stories. Juice boxes. Disney movies. One night, Grim woke to her screaming. Night terrors ripped through her like shrapnel. He didn't know what to do, so he sat on the edge of her makeshift bed and muttered clumsy words until she calmed. His scarred hand, usually wrapped around a blade, brushed her hair instead. She fell asleep gripping his thumb. Another time, when fever racked her, Tank paced the length of the clubhouse, a giant of a man whispering prayers he didn't remember believing in. He fetched cold cloths, barked orders no one questioned, and only relaxed when her temperature broke. Demon, the loudest and meanest of the crew, had the strangest gift. He sang old lullabies from a childhood he never talked about. His voice, rough as gravel, softened in those late hours until Sofia's sobs faded and she curled against her backpack, finally at peace. It wasn't just the men who changed. The clubhouse itself bent around her presence. Beer bottles gave way to apple juice. The poker table turned into a coloring station. Guns still hung on the walls, but beside them, childish crayon drawings fluttered, stick-figure bikers holding hands with a tiny girl. One morning, Blaze caught himself watching a Disney movie, still wearing his cut, arms crossed, pretending he wasn't invested. Sofia leaned against him, whispering commentary about the princess's bravery. Blaze never smiled, not fully, but the hard lines in his face softened enough to betray him. Caroline Grant noticed. Each weekly check-in, she found reasons to hesitate. Technically, Sofia should have been moved already. But technically, nothing about this was right. And somewhere between the rules and the reality, Caroline chose to let it be. The Blackthorn Syndicate had been many things. Fighters, smugglers, ghosts in the underworld. But guardians? Never. Yet each man carried a piece of her burden. Grim taught her how to tie knots, saying knots kept the world from coming apart. Tank showed her how to fix a flat tire, insisting independence mattered. Demon let her paint over his tattoos with washable markers, grumbling but never wiping them off. And Blaze, he taught her silence. That not every question needed an answer. That sometimes strength was just standing still. Still, no one fooled themselves. The cartel would not forget. Delgado might rot in a cell, but the names, the dates, the money trails, they were worth killing for. And Sofia, the girl with the pink backpack, was the only reason those secrets were in the light at all. Every roar of a distant engine still made the men tense. Every shadow across the lot set hands reaching for weapons. But inside, amid the juice boxes and crayon drawings, a new kind of strength was building. Not just the strength to fight, the strength to protect, to shelter, to become something more than what they were. And for Sofia, that meant, for the first time since her mother's death, she wasn't just surviving. She was beginning to live. The summons came on a Tuesday, tucked in a manila envelope that smelled like copy toner and bad news. Court date. Department case number. Room assignment. Judge. Rebecca Coleman. Blaze read it once, jaw tight, then passed it to Grim, who passed it to Hawk. No one spoke for a full minute. Sofia sat at the table drawing a motorcycle with a basket on the front for her backpack. She looked up at the silence, then went back to coloring in the wheels. Caroline Grant arrived that afternoon with a folder thick enough to wedge a door. "It's going to be tough," she said, not sugarcoating it. "They'll say you're violent. They'll say your records make you unsafe. They'll ask why a child should live in a garage with men who've done prison time." Blaze nodded like he was taking a punch on purpose. "What do they need to see?" he asked. "The truth," Caroline said. "Clean. Consistent. No performances." They cleaned anyway. Not to hide anything, but to show who they'd become. Tools hung high. Cords wrapped. A gate up between the workspace and living area. Juice boxes lined the shelf where whiskey used to be. A whiteboard above the coffee maker read morning. Teeth, hair, breakfast, backpack check. Nightmares charted with small XS turning into blank squares as the weeks passed. On the meeting room wall, Sofia's drawings. Men with wide shoulders and small smiles, a stick girl with braids, a tree with long thorns named Blackthorn in careful block letters. Caroline kept coming back at odd hours. She saw what mattered, Sofia's nightmares slipping from nightly to rare, her shoulders lowering when Grim walked in, Tank's giant hands gentle with band-aids, demon humming when the dark got loud. She rode with Hawk to school one morning and watched Sofia march in holding her backpack like a flag. Later, she read the report from her teacher. Improving focus, kinder with other kids, talks about her uncles with pride. The night before court, Blaze sat with Sofia at the table. "Judge will have questions," he said. "You don't have to be brave. You just have to be honest." Sofia considered this. "Honest is brave," she said. He huffed a quiet laugh. "Yeah, kid. It is." Family Court, Department 12. Beige walls, low ceiling, tired carpet. A flag in the corner. A seal over the bench. Rows of seats holding people hoping the system would see them the way they saw themselves. Blaze wore a plain shirt and a jacket that fit like a dare to behave. Grim sat beside him, knuckles scraped but bandaged. The others filed in behind, cleaner than they'd been in years and somehow more themselves. Caroline took a seat at the aisle with her folder and her comm. Sofia sat between Blaze and Grim, backpack at her feet. She swung her legs softly, not reaching the floor, eyes taking in every detail like the room mattered the way a garage matters, where you decide what gets fixed. The state's attorney stood first. Sharp suit, smooth voice. "Your Honor, the department cannot support placement with the Blackthorn Syndicate. These men are self-described outlaws with documented histories of violence. This child deserves stability, not proximity to crime." He listed charges like reading off a menu: assault, possession, weapons, parole violations, never once looking at Sofia. He mentioned the garage as a mechanic's warehouse, the men as members of a gang. He held up a photo of a row of motorcycles like that proved something about love. Blaze's court-appointed attorney was a woman with sleeves rolled to her elbows and a pen she kept clicking when she thought. She didn't pretend the records didn't exist. She laid them on the table and then laid something else beside them: statements from the night of the fight, the chain of custody forms, a letter from Detective Ruiz noting the syndicate's cooperation, notes from Sofia's teacher about attendance and improvement, a pediatrician's summary of care, a schedule taped to a photo of a whiteboard that read, "Bedtime 8:30, no exceptions." "Your Honor," she said, "this is not a fairy tale. These are men who've done harm, then done the hard work of being different. Since the night Sofia walked into their garage, she has slept through more nights than she did in the prior month. Her grades have improved, and she has formed secure attachments. That is not an accident. That is caregiving." Caroline testified next. She spoke plainly. "I was skeptical," she said. "I have seen places like this go badly. I came at all hours to catch them off guard. What I saw, consistently, was care. Imperfect, loud, messy care. But care. They moved tools. They put up gates. They made routines and kept them. They turned a clubhouse into a home." She glanced at Sofia, then at Blaze. "I'm not asking you to ignore their records," she told the judge. I'm asking you to see they're present. The state's attorney nodded at the judge and tried to poke holes anyway. Ms. Grant, would you raise your own child in that environment? Caroline didn't blink. I'd raise my child where she felt safe and loved and believed, she said. That's what I see here. There was a hum in the room, the kind that happens when the truth lands and people try to decide if they're allowed to admit it. Judge Coleman folded her hands. She was composed, stern without cruelty. I've read every page, she said. I understand both the risk and the need. She looked over the rim of her glasses at Sofia. Miss Delgado, do you understand what's happening today? Sofia stood. Blaze felt Grimm's hand flatten on the bench like he was holding the whole row steady. Yes, ma'am, Sofia said. Some people think my family looks too scary to love me. A murmur carried across the room. She went on, voice steady. But they don't know my uncles. They keep the monsters away. They love me. And love is what makes a family. No one quite breathed for a beat. Even the stenographer looked up. Caroline pressed her lips together and looked at the table so she wouldn't cry in front of the state's attorney. Judge Coleman didn't smile, but something in her shoulders loosened. Thank you, Sofia, she said. She turned to Blaze. Mr. Johnson, Blaze, you understand that custody is not a trophy. It is work. It is rules. It is showing up for the least glamorous parts of a child's life. Yes, Your Honor, Blaze said. We've been practicing. You can't practice a background check, the state's attorney muttered. Too low for the record, but not low enough. The judge ignored him. You will meet with Ms. Grant weekly for the first 3 months. You will maintain school attendance, pediatric appointments, and a safe home. You will submit to inspections without notice. There will be no drinking in front of the child, no weapons within reach, no overnight visitors outside your household. She paused. Do you accept those terms? Blaze didn't even look back. Yes. Grimm said, yes, at the same time, like a promise he'd been waiting his whole life to make. The judge lifted the file and let it fall gently to the bench, a soft thud that sounded like a verdict landing. Custody granted to Mr. Johnson with the Blackthorn household as placement, under supervision of DCFS. For a split second, the room was silent in disbelief. Then sound rushed back, Demon's breath exploding like he'd been underwater, Hawk's chair scraping, Tank saying thank you to no one specific. Blaze turned to Sofia, but she was already moving. She launched herself into his arms with a force that almost knocked him back. He caught her, big hands sure around a small back. Daddy, she whispered into his collar. The word hit him like a blow and a baptism at once. He closed his eyes. Yeah, kid, he said. I'm here. Caroline wiped at one eye like she'd gotten something in it. The state's attorney packed his neat stack of objections into a folder that suddenly felt very light. Judge Coleman banged the gavel once, not for drama but to mark a line in time. Before and after. They filed out into the hallway, the noise of other lives washing around them. Other cases, other names, other weights. Sofia kept one hand on Blaze's jacket and one on her backpack strap, like she was holding both the past and the future steady. Outside, the sky was clean and hot. The parking lot shimmered. Grimm stood by the car, looking at Sofia like he was counting her breaths and finding them all there. What now? Tank asked, half laughing, half terrified. Now we go home, Blaze said. Home, Sofia repeated, testing the shape of the word. She looked up at the men, at Caroline, at the sun. Can we get ice cream? Demon barked a laugh. Kid, he said, we can get 2. Even numbers, Hawk warned. No fights. They walked toward the car, toward the work and the rules and the long days ahead, toward a fridge full of juice boxes and a wall full of crayon drawings, toward nights where the dark still pressed in but didn't win, toward the kind of family you build, one promise at a time. Behind them, the courthouse doors swung shut, catching a gust of air that smelled like paper and exhaustion. Inside, files settled on shelves. Outside, a little girl held her backpack and her father's hand and didn't look back. The ruling didn't just give Blaze custody. It changed the clubhouse forever. The old concrete walls, once echoing with curses and the grinding hum of wrenches, now carried the softer sounds of bedtime. Laughter. Cartoons. The rustle of crayons across paper. The Blackthorn Syndicate had been many things in its lifetime: outlaws, fighters, survivors. But now, whether they liked it or not, they were fathers too. The shift wasn't instant, but it was steady. One night Tank patched a leaky pipe in the bathroom, cursing under his breath until Sofia handed him a flashlight and said, "I'll hold it for you, Uncle Tank." He didn't swear again that evening. Another time, Grim caught himself setting aside spare cash for Sofia's school supplies instead of poker night. Demon, the one who swore he'd never sing outside of a drunken roar, learned to hum lullabies so softly it almost broke the others' hearts to hear it. It was strange at first. The men had built their lives around loyalty to one another, a code of survival outside the law. Now their code stretched to include a little girl with braids and a backpack, and it was she who enforced it with her presence. No one wanted to light up a cigarette in front of Sofia. No one wanted to bring chaos back through those doors when she was painting rainbows on the wall or laughing at Disney movies. Caroline Grant, the social worker, kept her visits. At first, her clipboard was always full of notes, her eyes sharp, measuring. But as weeks turned to months, her visits softened. She'd step in and see Tank pacing because Sofia had a fever, Grim sprawled on the floor helping her sound out words in a library book, or Blaze sitting at the table while she told him about her day. Caroline's reports became shorter, steadier, filled less with doubt and more with admiration. Sofia herself carried the biggest change. She no longer trembled at every loud sound. Her nightmares didn't own the nights. She started speaking in class, making friends, and smiling in ways that seemed to light the entire garage. One day, after Blaze asked her what she wanted for her birthday, she said something that silenced the entire syndicate. "I don't just want presents," she said. "I want brave hearts." They looked at her, confused. Blaze asked what she meant. "Brave Hearts," Sofia explained, "is a place for kids like me. Kids who are scared but want to be brave. Where we can draw and write and take pictures. So if something bad happens, we have proof. Like Mama said." She spoke with the clarity of someone who had lived through more than her years. The bikers didn't laugh. They didn't dismiss it as a child's game. Blaze just nodded. "Then Brave Hearts it is." The clubhouse made room for it. Old crates turned into supply bins. The pool table got pushed aside for a circle of chairs. Sofia packed her pink backpack, but now instead of secrets, it carried gifts for others. Crayons, journals, disposable cameras. Brave Hearts started with 3 children. 2 from a shelter Caroline worked with, another from a foster placement. It grew quietly, week by week. They sat in circles, shared stories, cried, laughed. They learned the same lesson Sofia's mother had taught her. The world won't always believe you, but evidence and courage could make it listen. The Blackthorn Syndicate became unlikely guardians, not just for Sofia but for a dozen other children. Word spread. People who once crossed the street to avoid the bikers started knocking on their door. Mothers whispered thanks when their exes backed off after Blaze showed up on the porch. Teachers made discreet calls when a student came to school bruised. Even the police noticed. At first, they were suspicious. A call came in about a domestic dispute, and when an officer arrived, Grim was already there with Sofia at his side, standing between a child and the shouting stepfather. Instead of swinging fists, Grim handed over a disposable camera with photos the child had taken. "We thought you'd need proof," he said. The officer didn't argue. Over time, the grudges between cops and bikers dulled into something closer to respect. When cases were too raw, too ugly, when children wouldn't speak to uniforms, someone would mutter, "Call Blackthorn." It wasn't official, but it worked. The syndicate, once feared, had become something else: protectors. Sofia, at 10 years old, became their leader. Not in the way of chains or patches, but in spirit. She carried her backpack everywhere, her tools of defiance rattling inside. Crayons for expression, journals for truth, cameras for proof. She told the other kids what her mother had told her: be brave. Take pictures. Tell your story. Find safe people. The men watched her with a mix of awe and fear. The awe of seeing her heal, the fear of knowing the world could still try to take her. Blaze often sat awake long after everyone else slept, staring at the drawings taped to the walls. Stick figures on motorcycles, hearts with wings, children holding hands. He knew this wasn't just about Sofia anymore. Brave Hearts was bigger than her, bigger than them. It was a movement born in a garage, out of blood and fear and love. On the anniversary of the night Sofia first walked through their doors, the syndicate gathered. No one called it a celebration. It wasn't about winning a fight or surviving another year. They lined up their bikes outside, cleaned the clubhouse, and set out candles. Sofia stood in the center, holding a single drawing, a heart made of thorns, with wings sprouting from its sides. "This isn't about monsters," she told them. "This is about us. Brave Hearts means we get to live. All of us." Blaze pulled her close, and the men circled around like the wall they had once formed in that garage. Only now, it wasn't to block violence. It was to hold space for something new. The night air hummed with engines cooling, candles flickering, and the sound of a little girl leading men who had once been lost into something worth saving. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes love can come from the most unexpected places. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story. And leave a comment. What does family mean to you? Blood, or the people who keep the monsters away?